It's time!
What is kicking, everybody? It is Tom back for another episode of Pickin Fights. Just don't going solo today. Keith had a prior obligation, but I knew I had to pop on here at least real quick the day after that incredible UFC 282. And I'm using the word incredible loosely. The first few fights of the card were actually really, really interesting. And not even the first few. I would say the entire card was really enjoyable, pretty much up until those last two fights that were really questionable. You had the Ankalaev and Blachowicz fight ending in a draw, and then Joe Rogan pressuring Jan Blachowicz to almost say that he felt that he lost. It was weird. And then when Joe went and interviewed Ankalaev was very upset with the decision, obviously, as one would expect after battling through those leg kicks for the second and the third that were really, really bothering him, moving into more of a grappling heavy approach in the later rounds of the fight. I mean, listen, I'm not upset at the draw. I think, you're looking at the first is a toss-up, very, very close round. I thought Ankalaev could have taken it. A lot of people were thinking Jan probably took it. And then the second was Jan's. The third was probably Jan's as well, when you consider the damage of accumulation of damage, rather, on those leg kicks. And then, Ankalaev probably takes the fourth, and then a really, really impressive, potentially 10-8 round in the fifth there. So I'm not upset with the draw, but the weird thing is obviously then at the press conference, Dana White talking about how they had just rebooked Glover or not rebooked, but they booked Glover again to fight for the belt against Jamal Hill, who was a new player in this equation. And, considering the length of time that it takes to get fights done, the fact that that was all ready to go, signed, sealed, delivered by the press conference. And, that couldn't have been more than 30 minutes after the decision of a draw came out. It's just really weird, the timing of everything and the way it ended up going, considering. And it really makes you think about, the light heavyweight of old and really how much turmoil this light heavyweight division has been in since John Jones has left and he's went on his heavyweight pursuit. And then you have the fact of Paddy Pimblett taking on Jared Gordon, someone that with the star power and potential career goals that Paddy Pimblett has, you would expect him to tear through Jared Gordon. And Jared Gordon gave up a really, really good fight in the first round. It's a toss-up either way. A lot of people think that that went to Jared Gordon. I can absolutely see that. I'm not going to say that I think it went to Paddy, but I really think that one's a very, very close round. I broke it out by minute, and I think Jared Gordon wins the first minute. He was landing the more impressive shots right off the bat. In the second minute, Paddy Pimblett came back and is landing harder shots. It's not quite stinging, and Jared, you're not getting the reaction of Jared Gordon that you got out of Paddy Pimblett, but you can tell by just the sound and where the shots landed. Those are hard, stiff shots that are coming in the second minute of the first round. And then I think Jared Gordon starts to take over, and it gets a little bit of a toss-up from then on. Jared Gordon starts to take over in the third. And I think the one that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, really seals it for him is the fact that he did get that takedown and won that first round on top. So I think in a fight that's going to be largely a toss-up, or a round that's going to be largely a toss-up, the guy who's going to win it on top in position, landing a couple ground and pound elbows from that top position, I think you got to give that first round to Jared Gordon. And then the second round goes to Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett was landing the harder shots there. I don't know if that's in too much of a dispute either, that Paddy's going to take the second round. Still a close contested round. And then you go on to the third round, where even Paddy admittedly said that he was coasting, but then Dana White turns around and says that Jared Gordon shouldn't have coasted, but Jared Gordon was the one initiating the clinches and initiating the grappling exchange and trying to impose his force on Paddy Pimblett at that point. So not sure what fight Dana White was watching or what they were trying to cover up. I'm not saying that they were trying to cover up, or that they had a preconceived notion or an outcome of what they wanted to happen. But I think Jared Gordon was in the dominant position. He was landing some strikes, not a ton of output. But again, if you're looking at the rule book and the way these fights are judged, it's absolutely damage first. I can't I can't say confidently that Paddy Pimblett had more damage overwhelmingly for sure in that third round than Jared Gordon did. So you look at control, and you look at who had the better position. And who was initiating. And well, Jared Gordon for 4 out of 5 minutes was initiating. For Jared Gordon for probably 3 out of 5, 3.5, 4 out of 5 minutes had the better position. And but when damage is a moot point, you got to go to these other factors. And I think Jared Gordon in that third round won that third round, and because of the position and the large toss up and the back and forth nature of the first round, probably wins the first. And I think that should go to Jared Gordon. But I think ultimately it was a really, really tight, close matchup, tight fight. Obviously, Paddy did end that fifth round in a more dominant position, landed a couple strikes, but nothing too heavy. Nothing happened really in the third round that I would think would push it over to Paddy more than Jared Gordon. But I do think that first round is a toss up. And if you want to say that Paddy's strikes were more significant than the volume of strikes that Jared Gordon landed, and that's even more so to give him the round when you're factoring in the takedown and the top position that Jared Gordon had at the end. I mean, I don't 100% agree, but I think it's at least plausible. So I'm not saying it's a robbery, but the thing that is concerning is where Paddy goes from here. And if he's having such close fights with guys like Jared Gordon, the rest of the 155-pound division is licking their chops right now at the proximity. No, proximity, that's not the right word, but at the possibility of being able to go after a guy and fight a guy like Paddy Pimblett with the following, get those eyeballs, and go out and put on a show. Because I think, kind of similar what we saw with Aaron Blanchfield and Meatball Molly McCann, star power can be handed off. And now there's so many people who are watching that meatball fight and saw Aaron Blanchfield just actually absolutely annihilate and run through her. How many of those people are then going to be interested to see where Aaron Blanchfield goes and goes, oh, wow, bringing those eyes to the sport and eyes to what Aaron Blanchfield is trying to do and trying to accomplish. So either way, I think regardless, it's it is not as exciting if you're a Paddy Pimblett, considering how this fight went for you. But the rest of the fight, rest of the card rather, was really interesting. You had Alex Morono, who was going to a victory against Santiago Ponzinibbio, and at the last second got hit with a left hand. I think they're still giving him his win bonus, and good for him showing up on 5 days' notice. He really was on his way to winning that fight. Dricus Du Plessis just kind of was. I was very concerned when he was punching Darren Till in the beginning of the first round, looking at the ref. Was Darren Till saying I'm fine? And I was very concerned about the gas tank of Dricus. And we've seen at times him almost be better after he gets a little bit tired because it calms him down. But he was just way too gassed in that second round that he even admittedly took off. And then, in the third, and even when he was gassed in the second and the first, he was able to just, with like no energy left, just dive and get Darren Till to the ground, which really begs the question, how bad at takedown defense is Darren Till? Has he just gotten worse? And 85 might be a really hard division for him, especially when Dricus, like I said, with absolutely no energy or stamina left, is just diving on takedowns and getting you down. Really, really poor performance in terms of takedown defense from Darren Till. But there were points in the end of the first and in the second round where Darren Till looked like he was actually going to win the fight, and Dricus was able to manage. So if you're Darren Till, there's definitely something there, but not a great performance, and not the performance you wanted to show. Ilia Topuria went out there and absolutely, put it on Bryce Mitchell. There were points where Bryce Mitchell was coming back and he was landing too. So it wasn't like it was a total one-sided affair, but Ilia Topuria is showing you that he is absolutely the cream of the crop at that 145-pound division. And I can't wait to see what they go and they do with him. And, you have the 18-year-old Raul Rosas Jr. in the first round, 244 in, submitting Jay Perrin, rear naked choke, exactly what he's done to a lot of other people. Really, really interesting to see where he can go. We know that, Jay Perrin, obviously not the cream of the crop of the UFC, but knowing that Raul Rosas at 18 years old, just having his 18th birthday, can get in there and compete with caliber of talent inside of the UFC. All right, he might be the real deal. This is going to be really, really interesting to see what this 18-year-old can do. And you just wonder if he's going to have, kind of the Sage Northcutt or, slightly better Chase Hooper. But, we're not seeing the Chase Hooper experiment turn out too well. It's not Chase Hooper is, a world beater. He's kind of hanging around that high part of the unranked division. So we'll see what happens with Raul Rosas. So really interesting UFC 282 card last night. Moving before we move on to UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Strickland. I want to say to everybody, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We really appreciate the love that everyone's showing us, and let us know on the bottom of the video what your thoughts are, what picks you're liking, what picks you're taking, what you're not taking. What picks of ours you like, and what you don't like, and if maybe we missed something. If you have a good prop, let us know, and we could feature it, and maybe start looking at bets that way. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pickin Winners and at Pickin Fights. All of our information is obviously below the screen, and you have Pickin Fights right here for me, Pickin Fights Tom. With that being said, and if you don't have a chance to watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on Spotify. The full video and audio will be there. Like I said earlier, what do you think of our picks? Leave us a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and we are going to start with our prelim notables for UFC Fight Night Canada.